Good morning. I am Linda Sherman, at Linda Sherman on Twitter and most everywhere else. Thank you so much for coming this morning. And you are in the panel that is going to address branding in the wellness lifestyle marketplace using influencers and other means. We're also going to talk about startups. All of the panelists are experts in marketing and very knowledgeable about startups. So if that's what you're looking for, you are in the right room, and welcome to everybody on live stream as well. I'd like to know who's here with us in the room. So if you are an agent, can you raise your hand? If you're working with an agency, if you are an entrepreneur, startup, if you are a brand, a big brand, okay? And I just want to let you know that the resources that come up, I post regularly after these panels on It's Different for Girls with a 4, itsdifferentforgirls.com. You can find those there. And fortunately, there's going to be 2 videos of this, both the live streaming one and the one that our videographer, Dawn, is taking. Thank you very much. And so we're going to start with self-introductions. I'm going to start with myself. My passion is healthy longevity. And I am the managing editor of Boomer Tech Talk. It's a web magazine. And I am an early investor in the company that creates Miracle of the Sea, which began as an investment in a sustainable aquafarm. 4 years ago, I had several skin cancer surgeries, and I used to get hundreds of precancers burned off of my body regularly at the dermatologist. But after taking Miracle of the Sea, my precancers were reduced by 95%. My skin is thicker and more robust, and recently I'm using the Gum Health Paste, which reversed receding gums and overall greatly improved my gum health. The ingredients of the natural marine extract and bioactive marine extract in Miracle of the Sea produce new healthy fibrocytes and lengthen telomeres. So that's a little bit self-promotional, but I have asked all of our panelists to go for it in that terms in their self-introductions and when we talk about brand differentiation. After that, we're done with self-promotion, so you're going to hear actionable tips, useful things that you can take away and use in your businesses. And let's take it away with John Parks.
Good morning, everyone. A pleasure to be here and part of this great panel. My name is John Parks, and I have a little thing that I say. It's one of the only names that's a full sentence, so easy way to remember it. I am one of the founders and CEO of O2 Health Lab, whose focus is very innovative therapies for recovery, beauty and anti-aging, general health and wellness, and in a very innovative healing environment, multi-locations, and hope to take that nationally. And just from a background perspective, I was very involved, lucky to be involved in the 1984 Olympics, which set my career path early on, and ended up in sports marketing and marketing nationally, working for an agency for many years, and then became a serial entrepreneur, been a part of 12 startups. Don't know if that's a good thing because most of them didn't succeed, but learned a lot from it, and eventually had a couple that really took off. Successfully sold off, was just enjoying life, had a major health crisis, ended up in a hospital bed for 4 months. And on a mission to sort of recover my health, I was seeking any way to regain my quality of life. One thing I like to say is no matter how wealthy you are, you can't buy time. And so I was seeking to try to recover as fast as I could and found hyperbaric oxygen therapy and this really cool cellular fit pod that's just amazing. And between it doubles the rate of healing. And so I'm on a passion mission now to spread some of these therapies and let people know about them, and help make my one of my partners, who's just an amazing healer but not a great business person, very successful. And when you're purpose-driven and passion-driven, I think that's the way to really become successful. So follow me at O2 Health Lab on Instagram.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Spira. It's great to be here at Digital Hollywood again. I'm at Julie Spira on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just about everywhere. And a little bit about me. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Cyber Dating Expert. And I help singles find love on the internet. And online dating and mobile dating is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I started very early. Cosmo called me the pioneer of online dating. My site is cyberdatingexpert.com. But to just sort of rewind a little bit, I started my digital career in 1981. I was a broadcasting and technology executive and originally an on-air personality. And I worked for the first commercial satellite radio network as an executive, RKO Radio Networks. And then I continued in my digital career as a technology executive, helping to start several companies that were satellite-based, and went through several IPOs as well. And what I'm doing now is I'm combining two things I really am passionate about, and I think everyone on this panel certainly is passionate about what they're working on, and that is love and technology. So I'm now working in the intersection of these two fields, love and technology, as an online dating expert, and digital matchmaker, and dating coach for something very, very important, and that's to help you with your love life.
Hi, good to be here this morning. Thank you for coming. My name is Deborah Fine, and it's Deborah Lynn Fine for Twitter and Instagram. I'm the CEO of Fine Line Accelerator, and we're just launching our website because it's a spin-off of a prior agency. And what we're really bringing, what I'd like to do for all of you, is to bring the experiences that I've had, both good and bad, starting companies, working for Fortune 500 companies and brands to differentiate and grow their channels of distribution and branding, marketing, with funding, since I have been, on the venture capital side as well as the brand side. So what I'm going to be talking about is the different companies that I've founded, and the companies like Disney, where they definitely showed us best practices and how to bring that into your own company and your own startup, and how to get that funded and hopefully get to an exit where you can, if you don't want to, not work again, dare I say. Thank you.
Please, Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Kapczynski, and I am at Erin K217 on Twitter, and then my full name, Erin Kapczynski, on other platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn. And here's some help on how to spell my name up here, because it has lots of consonants in it. So I started my career at a $4 billion wellness company called Herbalife. And after about 6 years or so, I moved out of that space for temporarily. And I switched over to the media and technology space, where I ran marketing teams for various media and ad tech startups. Right now, I am consulting for Control Media, which is an agency that helps startups and bigger companies with all of their marketing, data, business development, and funding needs. So we work with larger companies such as Experian, Velasys, the LA Chamber of Commerce we have a pretty close relationship with, as well as local and national level startups, mostly in the technology and media space, but also in wellness, as well as we advise companies in that space as well. And I'll probably talk about one such wellness company a little bit later in the panel. So for me personally, the bottom line is I do all aspects of marketing, and I help companies tell their stories, amp up their brand awareness, as well as get and keep customers.
Hi everyone, I'm Leah Kaplanis, the founder and CEO of Social Sparkling Wine. You can call me Social Leah, that's what my Instagram handle is. And at Social, our mission is really to create the cleanest alcohol available today. And we say that we do that to provide, or to help empower people to live vibrant, connected lives. And the reason why I wanted to create this company and innovate in this category was because when I was 26, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and I decided to heal holistically. So instead of having surgery, I went vegan, did lots of cleanses, lots of different Eastern therapies and philosophies, and learned a lot about holistic nutrition and really what we need to thrive as humans. And missed drinking alcohol, and so I started drinking alcohol again because I found that it helped me to come together with people and connect with them and to exchange energy with them. And just couldn't find something that I really felt good about drinking. And so we started in 2014 with one item. Now we have about 6 items, and we're in all 50 states, and we're in Costco in 4 regions, and Kroger, and Ralph's and Bevmo, and about over 4,000 locations, also sold online, and really happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Barrutia. I am founder and CEO of Baru Marketing and Media. We are an agency that specializes in building audience-inclusive strategies and marketing campaigns for a variety of clients across lifestyle, entertainment, and government accounts. Those 3 categories those verticals don't seem like they're quite aligned, but in fact, they really do align very, very nicely, and it gives us a really robust slate of businesses that we get to work on a day in and day out basis. My team is a team of very diverse, culturally diverse backgrounds, as well as diverse business acumen backgrounds. And we'll be talking a bit today about my experiences and my team's experiences having worked on a wine brand so that it fits into lifestyle. We'll talk about a government brand as it fits into trust and health and wellness. And then I'll talk a bit about the challenges and some great tips for starting your own business as well as hiring practices.
Great, thank you. Before we go on to talk about differentiation of brands, I just wanted to do a double check with the back. Are we okay on sound? Should we be a little bit, I'm hearing a little bit of reverberation. We're good, okay. So about this far is good. Thank you. So the next thing I'd like to talk about, the differentiation of your brand is so important in marketing, and all of our panelists have dealt with brands where they have built differentiation, and I wanted them to share how they came to that differentiation in a way that can help you with working on yours. So John, can you start, please?
Sure. I'll give you a couple examples of a couple companies. Obviously, O2 Health Lab. At the very beginning, one of the areas that we're very involved is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And there's 1,200 to 1,600 of these independent sort of mom and pop facilities across the country, and they all say hyperbarics. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at it completely different from a marketing perspective. I saw it as an anchor tenant in a larger health community. And so we wanted to develop a brand that both was clear and concise, obviously O2 being oxygen, one of the most important things you need, and yet broad enough to where it could expand and you could have a life and develop brand extension into other areas, into other products, into other things. So we developed a whole story behind O2 Health Lab and really framed it from that perspective. And another company I was involved with, it was in the endurance race community, marathons and half marathons, and so everybody would be calling themselves the Marathon, and instead we developed Run Racing as a brand under which these multiple endurance events were hosted. So it was a broader, more refined, very clear, concise brand that said what we did. And so those are just 2 examples, isn't something?
That's great. Leah, your product?
Yeah, so, when I launched this product, I went to retailers and I had to say to them, what makes us special? because they're approached by literally, there's thousands and thousands of wine companies just in the United States, and you think about the world. And what made it so that we could grow so fast was because the product is different, and it wasn't just different in one way, which could kind of be easily copied or added, copied. Basically, social is, well, it's all organic, so there really aren't any other organic canned wines, or even that many organic wines. It's very low calorie, so it's like a third of the calories of alcohol. This is just as an example to show you, not just to promote it, but gluten and sulfite free. So what happens in the sugar, the fact that it's in a can, we were one of the first canned wines, and that's probably the number one reason we were successful, if I really think about it, is because at the time there were 2 large alcohol companies that came out with canned wine. It was a new trend, and I was the third and the premium option. So by being differentiated, when you're talking with consumers, not only can you say, hey, it's X and Y and Z, and they may say, oh, Z is really interesting to me, and to another consumer, X is really interesting to them. So the more things that you can do to really create a special, innovative, product or service, and really be differentiated. At first, what happens with that is people will say, you're crazy, no one wants wine in a can, nobody cares about, sulfites or low calories or low alcohol, whatever it is. But you will find those people that do, and if those are growing trends, then that will, now it's one of the biggest growing trends and all of that stuff. So the more you can be different than what things currently are at this moment in time, I think the greater chances you have of success.
Building on alcoholic beverages, I would like Elizabeth to talk about 19 Crimes.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Leah, I can't wait to try social wine. Because 88 calories sounds like that is a great way to enjoy my intake and not feel guilty. So as Leah mentioned, the wine space is incredibly crowded. There are so many options, not only in varietals, but also in brands out there. And today what we see that's commonplace within the wine and alcohol space is that it's really about, not necessarily in Leah's case is very unique and different, but for major wine distributors, it's all about the label, right? They're building kind of stylized lifestyle wines, if you will. And there is a huge boom at the moment with rebel wine brands, these rebel spirited wine brands. And 19 Crimes was at the forefront of that. It's been on the market for about 3 years. But the differentiator between 19 Crimes and, say, its competition, like Apothic Wines or Exodus, or that's just 2 to name a few, Gnarly Head might be another one that you might be familiar with. 19 Crimes takes a different approach. They live and breathe their brand story. It is a wine that's based on the colonization of Australia, hence the name 19 Crimes. Australia was founded by those who were evicted, essentially, from the UK, right? And so each one of the crimes stands for one of the rules that had been broken, so to speak, by one of the criminals that went to Australia and founded this new colony. So with each one of those rules, they have created a story behind the rule breaker, if you will. And what's fun about this is when I say that the brand has lived behind their story, they truly have built a living wine label. So if you can see this bottle from back there, it has a face on it. And this is the face of one of the first colonists of Australia. I think he has the first or second crime that you can learn more about by simply downloading an app that was created in partnership with our agency, J. Walter Thompson, out of San Francisco, and our clients, Treasury Wine Estates. When you download the app called Living Wine Labels and you hover over the wine label, the label comes to life in augmented reality, and you get the story of this person's journey to Australia and the story behind his spirit, which is embodied within the bottle. The marketing campaign took life from this, and so we had so much fun building this campaign, which enabled us to, again, differentiate ourselves from all of the other competition that's so cluttered in the marketplace. And I don't want to go into so many of the details because we could be here for a very, very long time. But in out-of-home, for example, all of our out-of-home executions could come to life as well if you hover your phone, your Living Wine Labels app over the out-of-home execution. So you didn't have to have the bottle in front of you in order to hear the story of the colonist. There was a scavenger hunt because there are 19 crimes on the inside. The cork is labeled with the different crimes and what they were. And so in the first year at launch, we only created corks with 18 crimes written on them, and people had to search for all 18 crimes to try and figure out what the 19th crime was. And then in the second year, we unveiled what that 19th crime was as another marketing stunt. We, as a result of having so many followers, there's a huge social following on this because people went on this scavenger hunt and there were clues. As a result of the scavenger hunt online and all of the social buzz that we received from it, we brought in a lot of those influencers to a party called Nights of Infamy. We took over Alcatraz Island in San Francisco, super fun, and branded the entire place. And it was not only used for our fans and enthusiasts of the brand, but it was also used as a sales incentive for our distributors. So just giving you a hint here. So really used in a multi-purpose platform to build that brand identity and get our sales and distribution teams excited about the brand as well, because they could then interact with people who were aficionados of the brand. Thus elevating where we are today with this brand. This brand has, like I said, been in the market for about 3.5 years. It's had 52% growth within case depletion alone, and is the #1 growth brand for imported wines in the country right now.
Thank you, Elizabeth. One more on lifestyle, and that's Julie and how she differentiated Cyber Dating Expert.
The great thing about Cyber Dating Expert is that it was a company that was almost, I would say, first to market in that area, because there was such a taboo against and stigma against online dating. You just didn't tell people when I first started in 1994 that you met your boyfriend or your spouse online or in a chat room. So you it was kind of a hidden situation for many years. So as an early adopter of online dating, I kind of kept my mouth shut. And I knew there was a great story to be told, and I knew I needed to share my personal stories in building the brand, but I also knew that I wouldn't have a commercial market that would be ready to accept it, both from the media as an expert, and both from attracting clients, because we all have to monetize our businesses because we're not all in donations and charity. And so to differentiate myself, I think what I really looked at is the fact that at this point, I've had 25 years in an industry, and I was on the internet before a lot of people knew there was an internet. And so I really capitalized on the fact that as an early adopter, I knew what it was like to be you. Any one of you who are struggling with a breakup or afraid to find somebody new or think your shelf life has expired. I'm not the youngest person out there doing this, and that's actually become to my advantage at this point. The media wanted to know why I was an expert, so I created the book was called The Perils of Cyber Dating. Actually, it was my first book, and all I wanted to do was promote the book until the media said, well, why are you an expert? I said, well, why am I not an expert? And I went through all the reasons I was an expert, so I created Cyber Dating Expert as part of The Perils of Cyber Dating. It was sort of the next thing. And little did I know that I was suddenly going to be called by, New York Times and Today Show and CNN and just about everybody to give advice as an expert. And because of that, then I was able to develop my client base. And I think another real key point about differentiating myself as an expert is I'm also a girl who had her heart broken and was willing to share these details. And I think that people felt this authenticity to be really important, and they felt like, well, gee, she's just like me. She knows what it's like to be single, and she knows what it's like to be in a relationship. And that really differentiated me from people who just ghostwrite emails for people.
Thank you, Julie. Back on wellness marketing, Deborah, can you share the differentiation for your new startup, Well Healed?
Absolutely. Well, I've helped and had the honor of working with some brands that have used story and product differentiation and helped mold that, like the Budweiser lizards for the Super Bowl commercials. We did those. It's through humor. It's differentiating your brand in a very crowded market. I have a Dream Foundation, which I ran, which is all about helping children in Title I schools and showing the mentorship, showing the kids actually graduating, and building that trust, that brand differentiator from the thousands of nonprofits that are all very worthy out there. It's telling the story, it's being authentic, it's walking the walk. And so I've run many companies. Then in 2013, I was shot in the Santa Monica mass shooting. Many people died. I was shot several times, and I was the only survivor. And where that took me was to go to the nonprofits and to work with the Maple Counseling Center that could give mental health help for $1, or to become the CEO of I Have a Dream Foundation, which would help the youth before they got to the guns. I was not going to take it in a political, on a political stance. I just wasn't. But I knew what it was like to feel like a victim and then to grow and to thrive and to be able to use that to help others. And that was authentic. It's a story that's real. So after I've had many surgeries, I not only have the agency that helps other brands to find their story and to differentiate in the marketplace and become a dominator, but the brand is Well Healed. And for people who have gone through surgeries afterwards, I don't know if you've experienced it, but everything you have is horribly uncomfortable, makes you feel more ill, if anything else, and you can't go out of the house. So this is a brand that really touches people who want to heal well, be comfortable, and not be shut in their house. It's attractive. So from anything, whether it's a mastectomy, whether there's cancer, anything that people have happen to them, it's to help them to heal. And that's very different from the shape products that are out there. The shapewear products, it's not the same thing at all. This is really touching you when you're your most vulnerable to make you heal your best. So that's where my path has taken me. And I'd like to take others.
It's post-surgery clothing.
Post-surgery garments, yes, clothing.
Thank you. Did I miss it? Everybody went on that one, right? Oh, Erin. I'm sorry. Erin just has
just to kind of sum up a little bit of what everyone here talked about, as you can see, it's, in the case of Julie and Deborah, they have personal stories that really shaped the way that their branding works out, and the way of some of our adult beverage stories here, they have very unique points of view and very unique stories as well. So the common denominator here is telling your story and as a way to differentiate, leveraging your personal experiences, because at the end of the day, so when branding kind of first started out, it was about, well, what's the company about? Right, like what are the products? These days, that's so different. We think of branding as storytelling, but also something that resonates with the end audience. So basically, you're telling a story that you want to, that you're expressing your mission in life, kind of your reason that you're there, and then the audience wants to be a part of that story. And that's really kind of the audience participation. That is the key differentiator to a modern brand these days versus the older.
And an important part of differentiation is, of course, focus. And I just want to lead a touch on that, on the focus she chose for her company.
Yeah, so, today we all have access to any product we could imagine, or we think that we should be able to. So if we go on Amazon, we might search for like, blue 3/4 length cardigan sweater from Italy or something. Everyone is, they want exactly what they want. And they want it to be created by people who they're thinking, how to make the very best of that item. So if someone goes to your page or you talk to them and you say, yeah, I do a lot of different things, and depending on what stage of your career you're at, that may be the case. But I think that for consumers, if they're looking for a product now, they want to know that the brand is so focused on making the absolute best brand that they can make, that they're not just putting a product out there and with a bunch of marketing speak, that they actually can trust that brand to say or to have a product that actually, does what it says it does, because there's so much mistrust in our country with a lot of large, especially in the food and beverage space, where a lot of, large brands, people are hip now to, the chemicals in our food and things like how all natural doesn't even actually mean anything. That means synthetic, and really the effect it has on our health. So everyone is becoming so much more vigilant about researching companies to try to understand, are you really going to do what you say you're going to do? Do you really, can you really back up what you say? And by focusing on a creation, a product, a service, you put all of your energy into that, and that really, people can feel that, I think so.
Great. In the space that we're talking about here today, wellness and lifestyle marketing, trust is so important. And I would like to have a few of our panelists address that. Can we start with John, please?
Sure. Two of the points that both of you just made, trust, being an expert in the field is so important. So one of the things we do, for instance, is we work with a world-class individual that really knows his things. And in the health and wellness area, we cannot quote, tell you you're going to get better. We're not doctors, so we quote studies. We look up research studies and go very specifically to what this potentially could do. So that's a very important, and really another area is the whole customer experience, all the way through, because our customers are the best people to indicate what really transpires, and that customer-to-customer relationship then is a great means of developing trust for others, because we can say all we want, but if a customer says something really nice or has a great outcome or is a great experience, we want to capture that and empower that. And so we take a very proactive approach to that to make sure that whole customer experience is really fantastic, because that will build the trust one person at a time.
That's great. Elizabeth, the work that you did with the California Department of Public Health, can you touch on how you built trust in that environment?
Yes. So the California Department of Public Health came to us last year to work with them on their Champions for Change program. The campaign is really built to reach underserved communities throughout the entire state of California. So it's a statewide initiative. And it's there to empower and educate consumers on how they can lead healthier, more active lifestyles by drinking less sugary beverages, because we know our underserved communities have a higher risk of diabetes and obesity. So we want to make sure that we're getting the message out there that there are other options to drink less sugary beverages, eating healthier foods, how to choose those healthier foods, healthy snacks, and then also physical activity. But it's hard to just get the message out there, especially from the government. People are quite distrusting of the government without it feeling disingenuous, right? And so through our efforts, we've partnered with local TV stations, radio stations, and print publications to deliver our messaging in a much more authentic and organic way, because oftentimes the radio stations and the TV stations have anchors and personalities that become a trusted and reliable source within the community. Your radio DJs become kind of like your friends on your morning commute when you're listening to radio. So what we did was, in order to impact the consumer closer towards that point of purchase, is really building out marketing strategies in partnership with our vendors, our radio and TV stations, and our print publications, so that we could intersect at the point of purchase near grocery stores, near convenience stores, near gas stations where people are maybe in food deserts, not having access to fresh fare at grocery stores, going to the point of location and having our vendors create events for them so that we could educate and empower and have a one-on-one communication. And that one-on-one communication really allowed for us to build more of a trustworthy exchange of information and hopefully build an ongoing support for the Champions for Change program statewide.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. Deborah, Small World Toys, and we are at risk of being cut off earlier than I thought, so let's keep these to quick comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
With Small World Toys, the company was 40 years old, known for the highest quality of product when I bought it, and we took it public and acquired a couple of companies into it. And our product, being for very young, infants, toddlers, preschoolers, we had to have the trust of the parents. We had to have the absolute trust of the retailers. We did a lot of B2B2C marketing and testing, so that's business to business with our retailers, and then of course to the consumer. We made sure that all the product was safe, and we submitted quite a bit for awards for safety testing for high quality products, and received about 100 different awards and accolades for the product. And that was extremely important during a time when ourselves, Mattel, others were being attacked for my child swallowed a puzzle piece or something like that. So we had to go the extra mile in our testing, in everything that we did to make sure that the experience with the mother and the child were fantastic, so they'd keep coming back. So taking that 40-year-old trusted, highest quality brand and moving it into the present with bigger retailers, line extensions, licensing, everything else, the challenge was to make sure that that trust factor followed with all of those new product introductions. And we really did keep very true to our word, even on our new products. And so, the company has been bought at this time, but is, still very trusted for its products, and we're proud of that.
Great. Just to let you know, there was some confusion with the schedule, and we were supposed to go till 12, but now we need to be out of the room at 11:45 for another event that's coming at 12. So I apologize if something we prepared is not going to get covered, but I want to skip over to quotable source and PR tips, and start with Julie on that.
I've become a little PR machine, and I think that once you're in sales and marketing, no matter what you're selling, whether it can be a tangible, whether it could be a pair of shoes or advertising, you can transfer that to any other area. With Cyber Dating Expert, I created a personal brand with my name attached to it. And how I got my message out was initially through an enormous amount of content marketing. I wrote 7 days a week on my blog. I wrote for Huffington Post. I wrote for several other sites and lifestyle sites. And the more that I wrote, the more articles got indexed by Google. So Google became my best friend. My BFF is Google, because if you put in a search for online dating expert, I rank #1 on Google, and it's been that way for about a decade because of the thousands of pages that have been indexed and the authoritative sources that are linking in. So I looked at that, and as soon as I got one piece of media, my first media was on Cyber Guy. It was syndicated around the country. When my first book came out, I was so excited to have my first syndicated media interview, and I just published it everywhere and all over social. put the logos on my website. And once you have that initial group of authoritative logos from media, then other media think, I should call her because she can talk on the radio or she can be on TV. And it just really snowballed into becoming, an enormous property. To date, there's been over 1,500 interviews. Earlier this year, I was on the Today Show creating Maria Shriver's dating profile for singles over 50. Earlier this month, I was on Nightline talking about political dating apps for people on the left or the right, which was in conjunction of the third book I'm writing, Love in the Age of Trump. So I never stop promoting. I'm promoting a book that has had an enormous amount of media and it hasn't even been published yet. So I think it's really important to use your social channels and not get overly overwhelmed. You can't do Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, videos, Facebook, and your Facebook business page all on the same day. You need to make it much more manageable. So pick just a few things and do them well and do them consistently.
That's very helpful. Deborah, can you cover influencers and how that
Absolutely.
leads to...
So Julie is an influencer herself. What I'm going to talk about is, with I Have a Dream Foundation, if we hadn't had the real results from kids graduating, from families coming forward and saying how everything changed their lives, we never would have been able to work with people like Regina King, Wilmer Valderrama, Jennifer Garner, all the people that came out and came to our events to raise money for, the at-risk youth. And then when we would put something out about it and we would thank them, they would tweet it, they would put it out on Facebook. So it just, it became an endorsement with no advertising whatsoever, of course. And we would take them out to the schools and have them meet with the kids before they would be honored, before they would get involved with the organization. They had crystal clean names and they had to be involved with a nonprofit that was as well. So then they became our influencers, the very ones whose reputations were at stake. Regina King was at the Academy Awards, and she said, my $1,000 that I was given for, this bottle of champagne, I'm giving to I Have a Dream Foundation for at-risk youth. We never could have paid for an Academy Award ad, but it's doing what you say you're going to do and bringing the right people in. And they were the greatest influencers, even on the kids themselves.
On influencers, I want to get quick tips from John and Leah on how they've worked with influencers.
Just a couple thoughts. Influencers, just like anything in marketing, it's a tactic. So most people tend to jump to tactics really without an objective or a strategy in mind. It's so important to really, what is your objective? What are you really trying to accomplish? And as an example, recently we worked with several of our influencers who happen to be very high-level athletes, champion athletes, at an endurance event that we sponsored to really be integrated into the whole sponsorship campaign that we had. So it wasn't just them, posting on Instagram, but it was a really well-thought campaign that we conducted together, and then they participated in the event. They actually had autograph signings. They were there doing something. So it was most people tend to jump right to the tactic. So have a clear objective in mind. And one of the other areas that I think that people don't understand is really your customers can be amazing influencers. And I think you mentioned that. We tend to try to tell our customer stories and then pass that on to an influencer who passes that customer story on to get it out broader. So that's another way.
And you do a brilliant job on videos.
Yeah.
So don't forget that YouTube is a search engine, and testimonials on YouTube are very, very effective.
Right.
Leah?
Yeah, so, part of that could be just making sure that you get product to influencers. So that's, as a startup, I know there was several people here that were, looking to start a business. Getting your media kit together or your sample kit, that all takes work. And then, just the work of reaching out on Instagram or wherever they are and communicating and sending them product. But for me, what's been more interesting and beneficial is because I was very clear on who my consumer is, which it's mainly health-conscious women, I was able to attend a lot of events where I donated a lot of product, and I would meet these event organizers and community influencers by giving them product or by showing up to their events and offering myself or your services. So by doing that, I created real, authentic relationships with people out there, and throughout the years, we've partnered up as they've grown their followings and as I have grown. And really, these people are my friends now, and so they're shown on, if they're on morning shows or just, creating large events, bring people together. They text me, they reach out, and just offer to partner. So these are, back in the day before social media, it was small communities, people just partnering up, working together to help each other be successful. And I think if we get back to that mindset that these are real connections and real partnerships and people, then it can go a lot farther.
You got a quick one, Erin?
I'm just going to give an example of Ilan Veda.
Can we come? Well, let's see what the so we have 15 minutes left. I want to see if there's any questions from the audience. And then based on that, we'll come back. But I want you to know that we probably won't have time for you to come up and talk to the speakers, which we would have liked you to be able to do. So if you do want to speak to them, we will wait for you outside. So please feel free to come out. Is there anybody who has a question? Okay, good. So we will go ahead quickly.
Oh, yeah. So this is speaking to all the startup people out there. We had some hands go up at the beginning of the panel. And so this is speaking to you. There are, larger companies with larger budgets obviously have been using the influencer tactics for various years. I mean, there are companies to address that, like Influential, Captivate, Tracker, Tap Influence. And for those of you who don't quite have the budgets and want to kind of start hacking the influencer space and really getting them to work for you on a small budget or with internal resources, I can give you a company as an example that I advise in the wellness space. They're called Ilan Veda, and they have Ayurvedic products, and they're manufactured here. And they have things like cleanses and face oils and hair support supplements, like really high quality, pure products. But clearly, it's a very crowded space, and so they've actually been around for about 10 or so years, but they weren't getting too much traction. So they did two things that really any startup can do, especially in this space. One is that they rebranded. So the power of branding. Now they're new, and if you want to look them up, you can see their branding. They're at elanveda.com. It now looks like a high-end product. The branding now aligns much more with the product that they have. And then they also started to reach out to influencers. So they tested out some social media platforms, and they found that for them, after testing, which I would advise anybody to do, and in marketing, as marketers, we're always testing different things and abandoning quickly, but as soon as we see what's working and what's not working, to invest more in the what's working path. So that's what they did. And through this process of elimination and testing, they found that Instagram was the platform for their audiences, and they ran a combination of super small paid kind of placements and really mostly organic. So they did not hire out a large influencer company and run formal campaigns, but what they did instead was they found influencers that they would want to promote their products, and they were in the kind of quote-unquote micro-influencer space. So for them in particular, they looked at people that had about 5,000 followers around that. That was kind of their sweet spot for and so they reached out to them and offered to send them product, or offered to kind of a quid pro quo kind of mention, and it really worked for them. In fact, after so they rebranded this January 2019, and their sales have been going up 20% every month since then. And as far as on their Instagram, they started out with 1,600 followers in January on their page, and right now they're at over 5,000, so that's in less than 4 months. So for a company like that, without a formal outlay, clearly what they're doing is working for them, and so they would see like who liked or engaged with their page, any new followers, any likes, any comments. They would manually go in and see what the following looks like for that individual, and if they align with their brand, and they would reach out and actively pursue those individuals. And that's really how they grew their following and their sales.
You want to spell that in case they're not familiar with the brand?
Oh, sure, ELANVEDA.com.
Okay, great. On startups, can we get some tips from John, please?
In which one?
Startups.
Oh, gotcha. I'm going to sort of go to the dark side a little bit, having been a part of several that didn't work. I think
Those are tips too.
Yeah, it's really important to design something with the end in mind. So envision that you could be a $10 million or $50 million company, and think about all the contractual and the relationships. If you have partners, spell everything out. Because I have been and I have seen in certain instances where people have different objectives. Maybe one of the objectives of one of the partners is just to make as much money as they can in the short term, and that potentially would drain the funds out of your long-term goal of really getting the startup off the ground. And typically that's not a good scenario. So make sure that you really have discussed and put in writing, you know, what your goals are, what your end result are, what your exit strategy is. Do you want to be there for 2 years, for 5 years, for 10 years? Do you want to take this company and live with it forever? So if you have interrelationships, make sure those are spelled out, and make sure you have access to the information. I've seen it on many cases. If people start blocking off information, and especially the accounting, that's where you get a lot of trouble. And sometimes you can get some really unethical individuals involved that way. So be very careful from an accounting and information, protect that, make sure you have access to it.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I'm going to talk about hiring, and expanding on what John just said on accounting. I made a mistake early on in my career and actually had somebody who was handling my books for me embezzle. So yes, be very careful with whom you hire. I'm going to talk some tips about hiring as a result of that. I do think it's really important, a few things to note. When you have a company with a brand vision and a brand purpose, it's important that you hire people that embody that as well as yourself, because they also are ambassadors for your company. So, for example, I run a multicultural marketing and media agency. We say we're audience inclusive. That means that we have people who are LGBTQ. We have people who are Asian American. We have people who are African American. We have people who are Latino, Latina. We've come from all walks of life, different intersectionalities of experiences, and that's what makes a great company even stronger, right? Having diversity and intersectionality of experience is so important because everybody brings a fresh and new perspective, as long as you are aligned with the same vision in mind. That's a very important part.
Thank you. And Deborah, with your experience as a VC and your own startups?
Absolutely. So I've started a few companies. One of them, my first one, was out of Disney, called Cloud9, educational software for children and learning. And nobody told me that it was hard for a female to get VC backing, especially for a technology company, when I was 28. So I did. I just did it. But seriously, it was hiring the right people, bringing in the right team, knowing the product. I had come out of Disney, so I really did know the business. I really did know the product itself. So when I went to the venture capital community and I raised funding, I went all the way to Series 3 and then a strategic, and which took over. It was, what is your team? Is your product really filling a need? Do you believe in your product? Will they? And then realistic financials. So it is going to take you longer to get to the stage that you thought you would before you bring in the next round of funding, if you do have to bring in the next round of funding. And then after I went in to turn a company around, I went into a venture capital fund that Mike Milken was in. Sandy Kleiman was running it, and I went in. And even now, we do dolphin tanks, shark tanks, angel investing. We'll invite startups or mid-stage companies to come and to pitch us. And sometimes we'll just, we'll mentor them and tell them, well, come back when you have this, come back when you have that. But you want to give yourself the best shot you have. So that includes a funding deck that has everything in it. It has the team, it has the mission, it has the strategy, it has a competitive analysis. It shows that you've thought through every part of your business and that you know it. Because your investors, the people that are counting on you, they're not the experts. You have to be. And that you also have to be able to show that you're teachable and that you can turn on a dime if you really need to, because that is what it's about. You will have to reinvent yourself at some point in your company and startup. And I do have tips, if you want to see me afterwards, from various VCs and angel investors on what they do look for and some of their names, so I'd be happy to share with you after. Thank you.
Great. And Leah, who just closed her Series A, a quick tip on that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so definitely those tips. I went through a lot of what you're talking about, and what's great about it is it really helps you get clear on your business, how it works, really understand the ins and outs. The tip I was going to share on startups is actually if you have an idea for something you want to create, I believe that the more we make it, we bring it into the physical, and we make it tangible so that other people can look at it, see it, smell it, whatever it is, hear it, that really helps to drive you forward fast. And a lot of people are concerned that someone will copy them, or just it's not good enough yet, any of those sorts of feelings. But you're going to evolve, by getting all of that feedback. And really, anybody trying to copy, you don't have to worry about that. It's so hard to get a business going and to create something that, unless they're really passionate about it as well, then you don't have to worry about that, in my experience. So I would just say the tip I have is if you have an idea for a product or a company, get a graphic designer to at least do a picture or logos for you on maybe 99 designs. You can get like 50 people submitting different looks for you, and get something on paper that you can start to show people and talk about and bring life to, and then you'll start to really rapidly revise it from there. Yeah.
Thank you, that's very useful. We have to be out of the room at 11:45, and it's 11:43, so I think we need to pack up. So please meet us outside. We really appreciate that you came, and we'd love to talk to you. Thank you.